Let's move on, President.
Yes. I now call our convention to order. And may we observe a moment of silent prayer before we start. Thank you. Roll call, Chief Clerk.
Delegate Albert,
Amen.
Delegate Arnold,
Here.
Delegate Asher,
No.
Delegate Posse,
Present.
Delegate Cantero, Delegate Chur,
Present.
Delegate Fritz,
Here.
thank you. Delegate Ashukuchi,
Here.
Vice President Isonan Canariarte,
Aye.
Delegate Canto,
Again.
Delegate Louis,
Amen.
Delegate Martin, Delegate Maury, Delegate Maury, Delegate Nabayan, Delegate Naich,
Present.
Delegate Paulses,
Present.
Delegate Risson,
Present.
Delegate Simon, Delegate Samo, Delegate Sigra,
Here.
Delegate Susaya,
Amen.
Delegate Takasi,
Present.
Floor Leader Yatselman,
Present.
President Kilian,
Here.
Mr. President, 22 delegates are present.
Thank you, Chief Clerk. So quorum is present, so we can transact business. So moving on, item 4, adoption of journals. Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we defer action on the journal of day 28, June 2nd, 2022.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we defer adoption of the journal of that date, of that day. Discussion, no discussion? All those in? Yes.
Me.
Delegate Kanto. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, when we keep deferring journals, then the journal is what lawyers will revert to later, right? When they review or result of this convention. And if we don't review them, who knows what the actual journals are? Or if we agree with the content of the journals. I'm just wondering.
Mr. President, that is exactly why we're deferring action on it, because it's still being reviewed, and we want to make sure that a journal that is adopted is reflective and truly reflective of what transpired in this convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. And the comment made by Delegate Kanto is valid. So trying to get those journals of the previous 2 days presented to delegates for review, and it's going to be soon. Thank you. Okay, moving on, item 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. For item 5, at the moment, we do not have any communications.
President, we need to dispose of the motion to defer the journal.
Yes, sorry. We did not vote on that. So I declare a short recess. Okay, yes, so sorry, I made a mistake. We have to dispose of the motion to defer on item 5, the adoption of the journal. So we go back and we vote on that motion because we're just in the process when Delegate Kando brought that up. Sorry about that. Okay. We're now back to session. A while ago, we were on item 4, the adoption of journal. There was a motion to defer action on that matter. It was seconded. Therefore, we need to vote on it. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carried. So that journal, including down previously, will be deferred. And as soon as they're finalized, send it to delegates for review. And it's going to be soon. Moving on, item 5, Chief Clerk.
For item 5, communications, we do not have any communications, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item 6, unfinished business.
None at the moment, Mr. President.
Mr. President, recess, please.
Recess call for. We're on communication item 5, and may I ask Chief Clerk to read the communication from Chairperson Mori, Chief Delegation, communicating to me the designation of the proxy or proxy of our delegation. Jessica, Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first or the latest part of our email is designating Delegate Kind Canto as my proxy. Thank you very much, Delegate Cindy S. Mori. And the second part to our email is thank you, President Bradley Killian. In that case, I would like to designate Delegate Canto as my proxy as a delegation chair for today's plenary session, as I will be at a hearing at the Supreme Court. Thank you very much. Respectfully, Delegate Cindy S. Mori.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica, Chief Clerk. So just for purposes, the designation meant for Chairperson Mori to designate Delegate Canto today and other days that should not appear on the screen, so that automatic that Delegate Canto will be the proxy in all those days. So I can elaborate on that for clarity purposes. So no question about it. So you're okay, Delegate Canto, you're in charge, so you can vote on our behalf on second reading, as well as other authorities that Chairperson can be including incurring of expenses for our delegation and others. So ready for that. Thank you.
Go back, please put that on the record.
Aren't we?
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Where is your? Are you on record? We're in session. There's no question.
Can we ask for
What I
recess?
said is correct. No
Mr.
problem.
President, can we ask for recess?
All right. Move for a short recess. Our Chief Clerk just read the communication from our Chairperson, Chief Delegation, designating Delegate Kando to be proxy for our Chairperson Mori. So he has all that power and authority to react on her behalf. Okay, if no other matters on that, we move on. Item 6, Chief Clerk.
Unfinished business, none at the moment, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item 7.
Reports of committees, none also.
Mr. President, point of privilege.
Yes, Delegate Posse.
Yes,
Point of
since
privilege.
item 7 and item 8, there are none. I move that we go to item 9.
Okay, we're moving down. So thank you, Delegate Posse. It's understood item 7 and item 8 are none, so we just leapfrog. We continue on. Item 9, Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. For item 9, second reading of committee proposals, we have a few of them, and the first one is on committee proposal number 4-03 for second reading. This is from your Committee on Government Structure and Functions, but first, this is subject to the review of Kao.
Thank you. To expedite our work, the other subsequent committee proposals, going down further, as noted, committee proposal 04-06, 04-07 on second reading, and under the rule 30 of our convention, rules of procedure for our convention, I hereby resolve our plenary session into the committee of the whole, and I kindly request the chair of that committee, Chairman Asher, to take over. And I hereby.
Point of information.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned because the
Are we going to recess first?
Move for a short recess. Under the rule 30, as I said, I resolve or dissolve our plenary session into the committee of the whole to discuss the three pending committee proposals as noted. And therefore, Chairman Asher as committee chairman of that committee, who will take over. So Chairman Lasser, you're now the man in charge. I hereby call for short recess.
Thank you, Delegate Nabihan.
Thank you, Chairman. The, the intent behind this proposal is the proposal is aiming to try to bring some balance between the powers of the executive and Congress. As you know, the veto power is one of the key tools that the president of the executive has under the Constitution to check Congress, the acts of Congress. And so, if the veto, if his the power under the veto does not have the effect adequately check Congress, then it will undermine the checks and balance. So, currently, under the concept of the Constitution, it takes 3 of the 4 delegations in Congress, each delegation casting 1, to pass a bill on final reading. And when that same bill is vetoed by the president, it also only requires the vote of the same 3 members of each delegation to pass, to override that veto. So if the 3 members of Congress are casting a vote for their delegation, want to push a bill through, irrespective of what the president says and irrespective of the merits behind this veto, the same 3 members of Congress can also override without the say of any other members of Congress. So the aim here is to try to get all other members of Congress involved in that decision-making process legally. And as I understand right now, there are informal discussions that Congress conducts before deciding whether or not to cast a vote to override, but that's not legally required. So the idea is to try to restore some semblance of balance between the powers of Congress and the executive by giving, by raising the threshold for an override and getting all the other members of Congress involved. So a 2/3 vote of all the members of the Congress elected from congressional districts will mean 7 of the 10 members of the tier members of Congress will have to vote yes. And then 3 of the 4 at-large members will have to vote yes for an override to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Nabayan. The floor is still open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Chairman Rich.
Thank you very much. Just clarification. At present, to override a presidential veto, it only requires the state's delegation votes, 3/4. So it takes 3/4. The suggestion here is to allow the people's representative also to participate. So in essence, it's making it a little bit more difficult for Congress to override the veto. That's the real intent. So for the 2/3, you would need 10 votes.
Only 7 of the 10, there are 10 members currently elected from the election districts.
Oh, election district, not 40 members.
So you need 7 of the, 7 votes from the tier members plus 3 votes from the at-large members. So a total of 10.
Chairman. Chairman.
Delegate Susaya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand the reasoning behind the proposed amendment is to make it a bit difficult to override a presidential veto. But as Delegate Fritz says, the way Congress overrides a veto now is 3/4 of the states, meaning each delegation, the 3 delegations that will vote in favor, presumably the members of the delegation majority of the delegation members agreed to the override. And so to me, the way the proposal is drafted, it is only trying to reveal who in that delegation who voted in favor and who among whether the at large is in favor. Because at the end of the day, it's the state delegations that make decisions on override. So I really don't see any purpose of, I guess my point is we're here to see how we can improve the Constitution. I don't know whether this will improve. It may or it may not make a difference. But let it be.
Chairman, here. Chairman Albert,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. While I agree that there needs to be some sort of mechanism in place where the balance of power is somehow restored, because right now I also believe that it's with Congress. I'm wondering this particular amendment will resolve it. The reason why I stated is because right now we require 3 states to override, as put by both Chairman and Susaya. The way it's put in right now, if those 3, because it's 2 houses, assume not the lower house, but the 2-year representatives will be 7 votes, and then additional 3 votes from the at-large. So if they had 3 additional 3 votes from at-large still or disagree or the amendment, it will render the same effect. So I'm wondering whether we should change it and just combine a total of maybe 11 votes to override. Because in effect, if you think about it, if the 7 voted yes to override and the 3 that is put in this proposal voted no, it will not go through. So it's the same 3 that controls it. Thank you.
Yeah, if I might, Chair.
Go ahead, Chairman Abian.
Well, this, I know that there are the delegations and discusses the merits of bills before they decide to cast their vote on final reading, which is will be one vote per delegation. But I think this mechanism allows the president some room to actually come back to members of Congress and discuss with them individually the rationale and merit behind his veto. And then at that point, if he's able to convince them that his veto should survive, there's a better chance that it will. But with the current setup, even if Congress, if those the 3 chairs of the delegation that voted to pass a bill on final reading, if they are really for that bill to push it through, irrespective of what the delegation will say at that point after Congress, after the president has consulted with them, they can still legally speaking override everyone else and remain steadfast and cast their vote to override because they voted to pass the bill on final reading. So it's truly giving some room for the president to try to maneuver and get some members of Congress on his side to help withstand an attempt to override his veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Abian. Floor is still open for discussion.
Mr.
Chair. Mr. Chair.
Delegate Knights.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, there are 2 questions that seem to write on these proposed amendments. One is redistribution of power. Second is redistribution of resources. Before I vote on these proposed amendments, I would like to have the benefit of the situation that this nation has been facing to necessitate this amendment. I would like to address that question or request to the proponent of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Knight. Chairman Napian, do you have a response?
Yeah, so I think those of you involved with the inner workings of the national government will be more familiar with this than I. But I've seen instances where the will of Congress just the president cannot overcome it. And one case in point is and I don't want to. I was hoping that we wouldn't come to this, but you know, I'm a member of the committee on JCRP, representing the state of Yap. If my recollection is correct, the power to negotiate treaties is a function of the executive, which is what the compact is. And so when Congress decided to take that away from the president by passing the enabling legislation creating JCRP, I believe that President Christie at that time vetoed that on the basis that there is a function for foreign affairs and the president to undertake for the nation, because Congress will have to ratify whatever product they end up producing. But the Congress really overrode the president over a function that the Constitution gives the president. And so to me, that is an instance where there is a stark example of the imbalance of power between the executive and Congress, which are supposed to be equal branches of government, but they actually are not in practice. And so I think if this proposal was in fact part of the Constitution at that time, it would have given the president at that time a better chance of actually consulting with members of Congress and getting some of the members of Congress to see his viewpoint and to sustain his veto. But as the case turned out, it was just a meaningless veto on paper because he was going to be avoided regardless of the merits behind the veto. Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Fritsch.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm having difficulty while I will be like my good friend James Knight will not be able to vote anymore. But I want to register something because at present, I don't really see any problem with the current system because regardless of anything, if we work as my condition, one of the concerns between different views between the president and the Congress, they should get together and iron out the differences. My problem with the current proposal is vesting this power that was reserved to the states to those individuals members, the 4 years at large. The way Congress operates, well, at least during my time, is this so-called state votes is actually by consensus of the delegation. It has nothing to do with the chairman or the 4-year term, because it represents the equality of the states, just like the 4-year elected at large anyway. So if we vest the power in the senator at large, I mean, he said, okay, look, I have this constitutional power. I don't really care if you guys disagree with me or not. I'll vote this way. Or for that matter, disagree with the government's position. Because under the Constitution, it will be just in him or her, as proposed. So if the intention is to make it a little bit difficult, which, you know, has merits, then I rather the other portion of it just stay as it was, that the delegations cast their votes plus those other representatives. Now, with due respect to my good friend from YAP, I think Congress has some authority with respect to conducting foreign affairs because the Constitution allows the Congress, the president to conduct foreign affairs in accordance with national law. So they can make a law that requires the treaty-making power to be subject to their decisions. So, like I said, I will not be able to vote, but I think we need to raise all of this as suggested by him, and we can go ahead and do whatever we please.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
defer to my friend here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. May I yield the floor to Chairman Palsis first?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to applaud the proponent of the proposal and also the committee for having to work hard to get this proposal this far. My take of the proposal here, I don't see how the power of both or either the president or the Congress are weakened by way of this proposal. And I think it is better to involve more heads to participate in the political process, such as this case. So the more minds being put into an issue, I think it's better service, which is the crux of the proposal here. So thank you for having the opportunity to at least to state my mind in support of the proposal at hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Quintero, you have the floor.
Thank you. Look, this is we're in the call process, and this is really the time that we fine tune our thoughts on these proposals because we're elevating our discussions. Next one will probably be the final discussions to wrap up on these proposals, at least the ones that are currently in procedure. So I think it's very important that we all of us express our thoughts on these proposals at this point of time. So I think that's very important. And we must also appreciate the comments made by our delegate Fritz, simply because of the monumental experiences that he have had in the legislative. So we can't take that for granted. Many of us have not gone through that experience, so we rely on those kind of experiences levied to us to also weigh these kind of discussions and thoughts. I think the spirit of the proposal is an honorable one. I think it's good, but I'm also thinking that whether it is really critical at the moment in our growth, government growth, and I say this because I while my mind is here, while my body is here, my mind is somewhere thinking about right now. How do we get this through our people? How do we get it in the referendum? And how do we make sure that these proposals have really passed so that we can have a really good impact on a successful outcome of the Constitution and consider proposals that are very, very impactful to the current conditions of our government and our people especially. So I'm always thinking ahead, and I always end up with the conclusion of to be very strategic, all of us to be very strategic in what kind of proposals that we want to put across. So while I think the proposal is very honorable, I'm not certain if it's really critically needed at this point in our growth. I hope that we don't, and I will always continue to maintain this position. I hope that we don't populate our proposals way too much, where it definitely will have an impact on the psychology of our people, how they view the proposal, even how they vote. It will have an effect. The number of proposals that we put across will have an effect on whether the success of the other proposals. That definitely, I think, will happen. And also, in my view,
I want to repeat that, we will be, at the end of the day, be part of the educational process of this convention to sell to the people the spirit and intention of these proposals. So I hope we can really, for this particular one, there's a lot of pros and cons to it. I hope we can sell proposals that the advantages are monumentally higher than the disadvantages. I think that will have an impact on how we promote that through public education and how it's received by our voters. If we have proposals that are 50-50 debatable, pros and cons are 50-50, while it's good, it's healthy, it will have an effect on how the voters cast the vote. So I like the proposal. I'm just not sure it is really critical at the moment. I would hope that we focus on those that it's very critical, will have monumental impact on our country and our people for this particular con process. We have opportunities that will come later on that we can also look at other proposals, but this is my view on it. I hope we're not too anxious, ambitious. Let's keep it cool and let's fine tune our targets. And if we do that, I strongly believe we'll be successful. The fact that we'll be doing public education, that means that we need each other more than previous conventions. So that's just my thinking. I support it, but I'm just not sure we need this at this moment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate. Chairman from Budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am confused now because I really don't know the process or the procedure that Congress use in selecting their chair, delegation chairs. If when the delegation chair does not vote according to their wish, they change him or her right away. I want to put this into practice since I'm now selected the proxy for the Duke delegation. What happens if I vote against them, their wish? I'm just wondering. At the end of the day, I'll just go and say, I'm sorry, guys. I really wanted to support that. That's why. I know you guys didn't like it, but I wanted to. Listening to my friend there, Chairman Apean, and his rationale, I think it makes sense. I just wish that rather than having two stages, just put them all together as 10. Because then what if the majority is 7 voted to override, but then the 3 or the 14? That means minority wins. So I don't know. Again, as the proxy, I don't know if I will go with the decision of the Duke delegation or I'll practice my own wish and see what will happen at the end. And at the end, that's why I say I don't know if they will change me or if they'll change the chairman of the delegation if they vote against them. I cannot. I don't know. That's why. Thank you.
Chairman.
I'll give the floor to Chairwoman Sikra.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Briefly, I have taken the time to review, study the proposal. I see more merits on these proposals, and I don't see that it's taking away the power of a certain group. I see that it's more participatory, and it will involve more time for the lawmakers, the policymakers to take their time to go through the process. So I think that the more important part here is that we're not weakening, we are strengthening the process. We see that where it needs improvement, and that is why we're here on this exercise every 10 years. I hear being critical and not, and I believe that there must be some studies or evidence behind it that cause any one of us proponents to bring their proposals here before we wait for another 10 years. So I am in support of the proposals because I see more merits in it, and I'm ready to vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I associate myself with the comments made by Chairman Fritz and Delegate Candero regarding this matter. As we know, the said proposed amendment that we're talking about is merely to, again, as stated by the proponent, to make it difficult to override the president's veto. Based on experience, and also I was a member of Congress, the delegation chairman of each of the delegations may cast a vote on second and final reading, and also on decision to override the veto, president's veto. Given the numbers, 14 members of Congress, so many, let's say 6 from Chuk, 4 from Pohnpei, 2 each from Yapan Koshai. And based on experience, usually those delegations act in unison. I mean, they make decisions together given the numbers. So a decision that is made or has been made in the past, usually by consensus of its delegation. So again, in all due respect to Chairman Nabayan, the proponent of this proposal, is I do not think passage of this proposed amendment to our Constitution will keep the balance in favor of limiting override of Congress. So I think, as again elaborated by Delegate Gandero, this would be just, to me, it just doesn't make a difference. Therefore, it would not be, maybe we'll limit the number of proposals. But again, if the intent, as stated, is to prevent, to make it harder for override, I don't think the proposal here will achieve that. Perhaps until the number of members of Congress is increased. Right now we are 14. If we increase that to, as I've seen, there were some proposals introduced to increase the numbers, including like 1 woman from each delegation, beyond, I mean, increasing the numbers from 14 to 21. And then that may be possible to have maneuvering in Congress to make it difficult for overriding Congress veto. But again, in all due respect, I don't think this particular proposal will achieve what it's intended to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Takesi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all of you. I would like to associate myself with the statement made by the good chairperson from the island of the sleeping lady. The proposal before us addresses the issue of whether it should take the same threshold to override a bill or a veto of the president and passing a bill on final reading. The question is the balancing, a checks and balance, exercising it so that in point of fact, it works. And it serves the purpose for which the Constitution intends, that the independence of each of the 3 branches of government be respected under due process. As well articulated in the report, in practice, Congress passes, the requirement for passing a bill is equal to the override of a veto. Essentially, the same people that pass the vote can also override. I think it is the intent and it is good practice for us to respect the independence and give meaning to it by giving it
the vote it needs. I think that those of you that have been in Congress have seen that in practice. Those of us on the outside have seen the result of what has happened. Some have been good, some have not been so good. This is a political process. But at the end, it is the good of the people. It is the good of the country that we as delegates must look to. And in my view, I agree with the proponents of this proposal that it is time for us to actually give meaning to the word override. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Tagasi.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Louis.
Thank you very much. Maybe you cannot see me on this side because of maybe they should cut that pillar. So before I go on, I would like to take this opportunity to pay my respects to Isoko, Mr. President, and our honorable delegates. I just want to voice out my view that I'm really in agreement with this proposal because it gives people like me a chance to see which of my representatives that I have voted in Congress overrides the bill that overrides, the presidential veto. So to give back the sole decision on the 4 people to override the presidential veto only gives those people, let's say, a bad name, but doesn't identify the other members if they are in agreement. So if let's say the person from a particular district also vote for an override, then it gives that particular person some sense that in the next election, people might identify him that he was against what was supposed to be a good thing. So I think if I have the power to also vote for this, I would vote yes. So I'm really in agreement with this proposal. Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Delegate Susaya, you have the floor now.
This is the second round. Huh? Let me just say my last few words on this. First, there are 2 sides to a veto, just like in life. There's a bad veto, there's a good veto. Seems like the previous comments have been talking too much about the good, that the presidential veto is good and Congress is trying to override it. So we must be presidents, they make bad decisions, needs to correct it by overriding. The second concern I have on this proposed amendment to me breeds dissent and disunity among the delegations. Because it bids the 2-year senators against the at-large senator on an issue to be overwritten or under consideration for overwritten to Congress. And while we're trying to redistribute power between the executive and Congress, this is really
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Chairman Abayan, while we're waiting for Susaya to come back.
Yeah, I understand that there seems to be some concerns on the proposal. The intention of the committee that reported out the proposal is just to make sure that we actually have a healthy constitutional government that actually functions on on the principles of checks and balance between the equal branches of government. I take the point quite well that Delegate Shisha mentioned that basically presidents also make bad decisions. And that's why Congress has the power to override the president. But I think the power to veto and the power to override should be co-equal powers that if one is overriding, like currently in my view, with the override, the power for override, then the other one is meaningless. If the same three members of Congress who votes to pass the bill on final reading are the same three members who will vote to override the veto, then I see the veto as basically a meaningless authority given to the president. Now, the issue that of requiring all members of Congress to vote on this override will create disunity between the members of Congress elected for 2 years from election districts and those elected at large. I think it's less important than the fact that all members of Congress are elected and expected to vote on fundamental and important matters impacting the nation. And I think a vote to whether or not to avoid the veto is one of those. And I would think that all the citizens of this nation expects their representatives, all of them, to have a say on the matter. And I think this proposal allows that. The current setup is, well, it's only the views of those three members who voted to pass the bill on final readings that will count, irrespective of what the other members say. So I think this opens the door to the voices of all members of Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Mabayan. Any
Mr.
more?
Chairman. Yeah.
Delegate Cantero?
Again, I think it's also we expressed our views on these things at this stage of our process. You know, in my view, if we look at the convention history, I mean, all of us know that very, very well. Many major issues were tabled in those conventions, some of which we are discussing now. But ultimately, at the end of the day, none of them worked. I mean, this is a reality for us. We can debate this issue back and forth, but the reality for us is really that we aim to have a successful convention that would output proposals that are most impactful to our people. If we create an environment where the convention is proven to be a successful mechanism for change, we will actually create hope for people to acknowledge that they have a process to change things. And that's more, in my view, a higher purpose than anything else, to give hope to our people that this process actually worked. Again, looking at the history of those conventions, none of them has worked. And so I ask my questions, why haven't these proposals worked? Proposals are very critical, revenue sharing in particular. So my personal conclusion is maybe those people neglected really the psychology of our people at those times. And I hope we don't neglect their psychology at the moment in our stage of our development. Perhaps one of many reasons is that too many proposals were given to them to actually consider. Perhaps too many proposals were tabled that had impact on the level of public awareness that the delegates were supposed to do. Things like that. We can only speculate, but my personal conclusion is perhaps those things. So ask myself, how do we neutralize those kind of conditions to create an environment that would be conducive, very, very conducive to the passage of the proposals that we have or that we will output. And most especially proposals that, in my view, are now more critical than ever. I will admit that revenue sharing is something that I have personally attached myself to, and hope that we can output that. But I hope that proposals that are important but not critical needed at the moment does not impact our success in outputting and even having a successful vote on proposals that are critical, for instance, revenue sharing and many others. So the point I'm trying to get across is, again, we need to not only look at what we're doing now, but how do we architect ourselves so that we create the best condition for success when the time is critical to public awareness as well as the voting for election time. So that's just my spiel at the moment.
Chairman?
Chairman, I'll give the floor to floor leader.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We are here as delegates to review the Constitution of the FSM, and where it needs fixing, we have to at least propose some amendments to them. So we should not shy away from the fact that previous proposals have not passed, and therefore we should not offer, some solutions to fixing what is not working anymore today in our Constitution. So I want us to be reminded of that. Let's not limit ourselves to the fact that some proposals didn't pass before because there were too many, but rather let's focus on what we believe needs fixing, and then let's address it now, because the next opportunity would be 10 years from today. And so, as a member of the YAP delegation feels that this is one of them on the issue of override. And I cannot agree more with what had been expressed by Delegate Takashi, our chair, and the others who are for it. I believe, it's about time that we bring in some resemblance of balance in the exercise of power between the executive and the legislative branch of our government. I've served 4 administrations, and on that side of the aisle, there have been cases where the administration felt that the override or whatever bill it was an infringement on the sort of the reserved power of the executive. But then when it goes back to Congress for override, it was easy, as Delegate Takashi said, the threshold that was used to pass a bill is also used to do an override. So I think what we're trying to do here is just raising the bar a little bit for an override to happen. Nothing more. It's just raising the bar just a little bit beyond what was required to pass a bill in Congress. So seriously, let's not, shy away from doing what we believe is good for our nation in terms of offering fixes to our Constitution. We've seen many, and I bet all of you have seen, but we're trying not to see it now that we're in this convention. We could have put in the millions and millions of money that have come through our treasury. But sadly, that's not, all the priorities of this nation that should have been funded, did not receive funding or full funding because, the power of the purse is with Congress. And so I'm not shy to say this, and it's a fact of life. It's a fact of what we've seen happening, and so let's be real and see what we can do to at least correct the way our government works, and especially our Constitution. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Delegate Posse, you have the floor.
I was going to make a motion.
Chairman,
Before, can we exhaust, sorry, in all due respect, if you go to stop the bid, but we have a lot of issues, sorry.
Do I need the floor?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Can I have
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Simon?
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a few words. And I'm actually would like to address the practicality of where we are today. We have a president chosen by Congress. They then send him 2 buildings down, 3 buildings down. Then they send him laws or her laws. And when the president vetoes some of them because of public policy considerations or economic considerations or developing considerations that are lacking, that are not there. We know they're not there because we're trying to change the revenue sharing. Currently, Congress, because of the 2000 case that the Congress refused to change the fisheries funds to be taxable, that could have been fixed, because if Congress has changed the revenues derived from fisheries to be income that be subject to division with the states, we wouldn't be looking for the current big issue that's coming up on revenue sharing. But we know the Congress doesn't want to do that. And we know that we have a super Congress right now. We have those 3 people that send that one person that actually is the super president in reality, the reality that I was trying to refer to earlier. So this proposal will give some power to the president, the intended balance that we have. Speaking of balance, if we have a president that's bad, like we said, there are some bad vetoes also. Yes, we know that. But there's that other balancing mechanism, the courts. The courts will then look at the decision of the vetoed law that was not overridden. I'm sorry, that was not overridden because we now have made it harder, and have a decision to, or chance to check the last branch that we have, the official last branch that we have, and then do the final check. So there's that one extra remedy that we have. So, if there's a bad veto and it's not overwritten because we just made it a little bit harder, then, we have the courts. But again, going back to reality, we have 3 super persons in Congress. These persons, if I'm not mistaken, pick the president, and then these 3 persons can then tell the president what to do all the way. This changes a little bit of the playing fields today, if we can pass this. Thank you.
Delegate Susaya, refer the floor back to you since you were cut off. You have the floor now.
I'm sorry, Chairman and honorable delegates. I was about to finish what James wanted me to say on this proposal about the power, the internet. I guess what he was trying to tell me was not good. But here's what I wanted to conclude my views on this. I am not addressing it based on current office holders. It is the structure that we need to look at. Decisions made in the past I've made already. And if we are to correct them, we have to understand these decisions are based on politics mostly. And like Chairman Fritz said earlier, there's always consultation between the president and members of Congress. In fact, there is also a presidential letter that explains the veto. And if Congress is still not satisfied, they override. I think what this proposed amendment is doing is presuming that all these overrides in the past, majority of it, are not good for the country. And therefore, we need to raise the bar, like the floor leader said. So what happens if in the event that the FIDO is bad? We make it hard to override, right? What is wrong with the current situation where like the three states have to vote yes to override after consultation with the president and after their own internal delegation consultation? Then the chairman of the delegation casts this vote in session. In here, we are now elevating the at-large senator, giving him power to override the two-year senators if he disagrees with them on the issue to override. That's breeding. For us, we're encouraging dissent among the delegations, among each delegation. We need to make sure that there's a cohesive decision-making process in Congress for the good of the country, not for one person's interest to overrule the others. I appeal to you, delegates. I believe if we really want to look at decisions in the past, presidential vetoes, there's nothing so drastically bad that we need to pass this kind of proposal. The structure is perfect. The allocation, the distribution of power is perfect. So my vote on this, Chairman, and I wish if it's appropriate, is it allowed in our rules to defer action on this proposal? So we can consult each other more?
Mr. President,
Chairman Nabian.
yeah, I think we've had quite an exhaustive discussion on this, and I move that we rise to plenary and subject this to a vote, to second reading.
Thank you, Chairman Nabian.
Point of information. Yeah, I'm ready to go on with what the good chairman suggested, but if we go back to the plenary, are we allowed to amend the proposal then? For the consideration on second reading or no more?
Recess, Chair.
I declare for recess, short recess.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Chairman Nabayan.
I reiterate my motion that we rise to plenary and recommend a vote on second reading.
Second. There's a motion, it's been moved and seconded. No discussion, no debate. We ask that we vote on that motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carried. Plenary is now rise. We'll go back to plenary session. Mr. President.
Recess. I think you have to report to the President action of the.
A while ago, the Committee of the Whole was in business discussing the committee proposal 04-03. So at this time, I wish to call upon the chair of that committee, call Chairman Asher to report.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Your Committee of the Whole as considered committee proposal number 4-03. I am pleased to report that your Committee of the Whole recommends that the proposal be referred to the convention plenary for second reading voting. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chairman. Carl?
Yes. Mr. President, if I may,
Vice Chairman Simon.
I move that we defer the second reading of the proposal indefinitely.
A second?
Yeah, indefinitely.
Okay, thank you. It's been seconded. The motion is not debatable, therefore, let's vote on it. All those in favor of the motion as proposed to defer this particular proposal.
Indefinitely.
Say
Aye.
all those opposed say nay.
Mr. President,
Motion carried.
I was asked to vote because I wasn't clear on the motion. I was going to seek a point of clarification.
Okay, I can retract my statement to afford the opportunity so that the introducer of the motion, Vice Chairman Saban, can you clarify before vote on it for the record?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The debate that we were having earlier clearly showed a rift, if I may, a created dichotomy between or among the delegations, especially for Bombay and Chuka. And I see value in consultation with our respective groups before we come and vote on behalf of with the interested delegation chair or acting for my purposes. So we'd like time to caucus the Bombay delegation, and would like I can see perhaps by tomorrow we will have that chance. I know that ISO is in Guam and the vice chair or is in quarantine and won't be out for a while. So we'll deal with the ramifications on logistics, but I think we can do it hopefully by tomorrow. I'll subject to some comments from my co-delegation members. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Simon.
So this is deferred until the next session day?
Can you clarify, Vice Chairman Simon, next session day, your motion? Or?
Mr. President,
Okay,
I think his statement was to defer indefinitely. But for your comfort, even though that is the decision, you can always bring it back. So it could be
Yes.
tomorrow. But it's, to be fair, his motion was to defer indefinitely, right?
Mr. President,
Mr. President, the motion was in fact to defer indefinitely because of the logistical issues that the Bombay delegation has because of our two absent members.
all right.
Thank you.
That is the motion, it's undebatable. Let's vote on the motion.
Are we voting?
Yes, state your point, Madam Chair Sikra.
I would like to know what indefinite means. I know that you can pull it up, but I would vote yes if it's deferred to the next session days. If there's another motion for next session days.
Mr. President, the problem with, sorry, the problem with us committing to tomorrow will be having to foresee what we could potentially negotiate in the next 24 hours or rather 18 hours. And I cannot control that. So I don't want to make another motion like this tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That is straightforward. So let's vote. All those in favor of the motion.
I thought we already did the vote.
Mr. President, I think it's already
Already.
ruled, but I'd like to make a second motion.
Oh, did we vote on it? Sorry. Okay. So the,
President, point of order. We have already disposed of the main motion by Delegate Simon. Why are we voting again? Why did we open up discussion again? If Delegate Yoselin wants to make a motion to amend the main motion, it's too late. The main motion has been adopted.
exactly. So
Mr.
that's been
President,
adopted. So that is it.
yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to make a different motion if possible.
Yes, Chairman Nabayan.
Thank you. I understand the rule has been to defer this indefinitely. Given the limited number of days that we have left in this convention, and I think it's only fair that we give each proposal a vote up and down, whether it passes or fails. Those that passes have gone up to this stage. So I know that we schedule this to give the sufficient time to consult, to schedule this to the first session starting next week. Maybe Monday or Tuesday, when we have a session next week. Thank you.
Second.
Any second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we have this particular proposal be considered up for consideration next week. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carried. I declare short recess. Okay, for the record, we have quorum. All the 4 delegations are here. Thank you. And last one for precise is walking in, so it's clear that we have quorum. So thank you again, Chairman Asher, for the COW committee on the whole you did before we went to lunch recess on that particular proposal, which was deferred to next week's session for action. Now we have those 2 remaining committee proposals, 04-06 and 04-07 are pending, and do I hear a motion for, before we go into COW again, this needs to be considered. Floor leader?
Do I make the motion here or in the COW itself?
Here. Yeah, do we go do COW and then consider, right?
If you then, Mr. President, I would, when we go to the committee of the whole, that we take up the remaining 2 proposals before we come back to plenary.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that these 2 proposals, committee proposals 04-06 and 04-07, which are pending before us in this plenary on second reading, be considered in the same COW meeting. If not any discussion, I guess it's straightforward. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. So motion carried. Therefore, again, I resolve or dissolve our plenary into the COW, and I kindly ask Chairman Asher take over as chairman of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee of the whole is now in order. We have 2 other committee proposals that already passed first reading. Committee proposal number 4-06 and 4-07. At this time, I would like to ask the chief clerk to read out the proposals in their entirety. Chief clerk.
Thank you, Chairman of the COW. The first proposal is on committee proposal number 4-06 CCD1. This is relating to the distribution of net revenue derived from seabed and subsoil mineral and other non-living resources exploited from the jurisdiction of the Federated States of Micronesia beyond 12 miles from island baselines. Resolved that the following be agreed upon as an amendment to the Constitution. Article 9, Section 6, net review from seabed and subsoil mineral and other non-living resources exploited from the jurisdiction of the Federated States of Micronesia beyond 12 miles from island baselines shall be divided equally between the national government and the appropriate state government or state governments. Where 2 or more state governments are entitled to such net revenue, such state governments shall be entitled to 50% divided equally among them. Congress shall give effect to this provision by statute in a manner consistent with the international treaty obligations of the Federated States of Micronesia. The next proposal is on committee proposal number 4-07. This is relating to providing exclusive jurisdiction of cases where an address of land is at issue in the state courts. Resolved that the following be agreed upon as an amendment to the Constitution. Article 11, Section 6, subsection P. The national courts, including the trial division of the Supreme Court, have concurrent original jurisdiction in cases arising under this Constitution, national law or treaties, and in disputes between a state and a citizen of another state, between citizens of different states, between a state or a citizen thereof, and a foreign state, citizen, or subject, provided, however, that the state courts shall have exclusive jurisdiction in cases where an interest in land is at issue.
Thank you, Chief Clerk. We will deal with proposal number 4-06 first. That's a proposal that relates to the distribution of net revenue derived from seabed and subsoil minerals in our EZ. May I ask, or probably just open the floor for discussion and give a chance for the proponents and opponents to state their case on this matter. Thank you.
Chair,
Chairman Abayan, you have the floor.
I move that when we rise to plenary, we recommend this proposal for a vote on second reading.
There's a motion in place.
Second.
Second. We shall vote on the motion.
Clarify, not now, but when we rise, we subject to recommend to a vote of
I move we close debate.
Second.
Second.
Sorry, Chairman Abayan, can you clarify again your
the main motion was that when we rise to plenary, let us know that we rise now, but when we rise to plenary, that we recommend this to a vote for on second reading.
Chair.
This proposal.
Chair.
short recess?
The reason
Number 4-06. The floor is open for discussion.
Chairman,
Delegate Bossy,
I believe we have discussed our discussions prior to closing the first reading. So I move for close of debate and discussion.
second.
Chair.
Recess.
Short recess. We are still dealing with proposal number 4-06, and the floor is open for discussion.
Chairman, I withdraw my motion.
You, Posey. Delegate Kandori, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think based on our deliberation on this particular issue, it's clear that it's something that is favorable to all of us. With that, it's most likely that it's going to, and let's hope that it does, be successful in going through the process of being presented to our constituents or people for consideration. But taking advantage of the cow to exhaust really exhaust discussion and clarification on some issues, I thought I maybe wanted to just take this time just to maybe seek some clarification from Chairman Bayan especially on the actual implementation or implication of this proposal. Let's say the Ongtong Java plateau, hypothetically, if or let's say some continental shelf baseline or area or some minerals have been identified to exist, and that particular area, let's say it's with Bombay State. Okay, so we exploit that area. 50% goes to national, 50% goes to, the other 50 goes to Bombay State if it's exclusively Bombay State territory. If it's linked up with Kushai, then they split the revenue on that. If it's not linked up with Chuk or Yap, those two states will not be eligible for that revenue. Right? Okay, that's good. My question is that something that it's perhaps beneficial to us as a country? Is that something that would not cause fragmentation, disunity, or is that something fuel interest to service this debate of if I don't get, then why am I in? I'm in full support of the proposal. I just need to understand this a bit more. At the end of the day, when we sell this, explain this to our constituents, we need to be able to respond to questions like that from our people that would say, why am I not getting it? We need to be able to justify. I'm in full support of it. I just need to be able to satisfy prepare myself for that engagement with our constituency. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Gret. Chairman.
Thank you. And those are very good questions, and I'm happy you asked them. I'll try my best to address them. So this proposal is not introducing a new revenue division. It's not currently. If there's an exploitation of minerals and non-living resources within the jurisdiction, within the EEZ from 12 miles up to 12 miles, this provision applies. 50% of the net revenue from the exploitation of minerals within the EEZ stays with the national government. The other 50% goes to the appropriate state. All this proposal is doing is because of the new Convention on the Law of the Sea has given coastal member states, party states, jurisdiction and sovereign rights over the continents themselves that extend outside the EEZ. If this proposal doesn't, if the colonial constitution stays, any resources exploited on the continents themselves beyond the 12-mile EEZ does not fall under this provision, the current Section 6 of Article 9. So all this is doing is not introducing new areas for revenue division, but rather just expanding the scope of the area that's covered under this particular section. So currently it's from 12 miles up to 20 miles, and now it's 12 miles up to wherever the continental shelf ends, the margin of the continental shelf, over which FSM has recognized sovereign and jurisdiction under the law of the sea. So it's not a new revenue division that this proposal is asking for.
Thank you, Chairman Mabayan.
Chairman, I move for recess.
Short recess.
I understand that we have completed, we exhausted our discussion on proposal number 4-06 and ED1. And I also understand that there is a motion that we have to entertain. Chairman Nabayan?
So the final motion is that when we rise to the plenary, that we will recommend this to the plenary for a vote on second reading. This proposal 0406 CCD1.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those who are in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All of those who are opposed, say nay. Motion carried. In the case that we completed our work on proposal number 4-06, our discussions, we will move on now to proposal number 4-07.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Chairman Nabayan.
I make the same motion with respect to this proposal. That when we rise, we recommend this proposal for a vote on second reading.
Thank you, Chairman Nabayan.
Second.
Any second? Second. Okay, now the floor is open for discussions on proposal 4-07. If anything, this is the proposal relating to providing exclusive jurisdiction of cases where an interest of land is at issue in the state courts. Any discussions?
Chairman.
Karen, you have the floor.
Again, I'm not a lawyer, but interest of land. Did you guys define anywhere in there land ownership or just interest of land?
Go ahead, Chairman Sikra.
Thank you very much, Chair. To answer the question, the definition was provided in the Standing Committee Report 04-08, and interest in land is defined as ownership of land, transfer of title to land, and registration of land.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sikra.
Chairman.
Floor Leader Yadelman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a question, and I may be wrong, but my understanding is state of Kusai does not have an appellate division. And if that is correct, if the court makes a ruling and someone is not happy, how is?
Well, when we talk about original jurisdiction, if I may, sorry, it goes back to the land court and then goes up to the state court, and then the state court goes to appellate level. And that is still within the exclusive jurisdiction of the Kusai state. So when they make a decision, somebody not happy, it goes down again, remanded to the state court, and then go down to the land court. That is the process that is going on with the Kusai land registration system. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Balsis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's in response to the question as raised by the floor leader. Kusai at its CON last year, and one of the proposals that was adopted and ratified during the CON was to create Kusai's own appellate. So in the meanwhile, we are still appealing our cases from the state court to the FSM appellate court, since we did not have the appellate division. But within 1 year from the ratification of the proposal, Kusai is expected to have its own appellate to review land cases. And if a body is not happy with the decision from the state appellate, we would still continue to appeal to the FSM appellate. So in due time, we will have the second layer of appeal before we exhaust the land decisions before the appellate division of the Supreme Court. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Chairman Balsis. Delegate Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think the question by the floor leader is a valid one, and the answer from Chairperson Sikra, I want to add to that. And that's the question of original jurisdiction, or I'm sorry, doctrine of primary jurisdiction. The question is on land. So what the constitutional amendment will do is that it will exclusively give the courts of the state jurisdiction to adjudicate matters that deal with interest in land as defined in the committee report. So in Koshai is unique because it doesn't have, at least until not yet, have an appellate court. Unlike Pohnpei, Truk, and Yap, we do have appellate courts. But even Truk, and I don't recall Yap, but even Truk, there's a doctrine that allows you to go further to the FSM court. Pohnpei, you can only go up there if there is constitutional issues from the FSM constitution in the lower courts. Now, the point in saying about the primary jurisdiction doctrine is that because even if FSM appellate court were to adjudicate after Koshai land court and then Koshai state court, it's under the what's called the Erie doctrine. It's, well, that's other, but under federalism, under the way the courts work together, they must apply state law, apply what the state laws use. So even if he's reviewing even if the appellate court is reviewing under the current system of the Koshai Constitution, it's restricted to the state law on land. So it should be okay. So the concern is valid, but it'll be okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I add to that?
Go ahead, Chairwoman Sikra.
Because original jurisdiction is with land court in Koshai State, for example, all the evidence are taken at the land court level. And so when they appeal it, they're limited to review only. There's no more introduction of new evidence. So when we appeal it to FSM Supreme Court, appellate division, they're not taking in any new evidence. Whatever evidence that was given at the Koshai State Land Court is what they're going to work with. So that is why it's very important that we give the original jurisdiction to the state where the land is situated at. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Go ahead, Delegate Candero.
Thank you. In anticipation of reciprocal support from the Koshai delegation to Pohnpei delegation, I think I support us to move forward in this proposal, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman Fritz.
I yield.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, I didn't want to expand a little bit on the definition on the interest in land is at issue. I don't think we can limit it to what is in here. This is a very broad. Anything that relates with land and interest in land, it's in the exclusive jurisdiction of the state courts. And kind of asked me a question which I wanted to differ a little bit, but since Solomon raised it, Delegate Solomon, with regard to our constitution, which allows appeal to the FSM courts, I believe if we pass this, then that's it. When our appellate courts make its final decision with respect to land, it should not be allowed to go up further. Other issues can go up, but not with land matters, yeah.
Chair, if I may, again, in anticipation of support from reciprocal support from the Chief Delegation on Senator Pohnpei's proposal, I suggest we move forward on this proposal.
Second. Chairman Abayan.
I was going to ask that you take a vote. We can't ask for the motion for the previous question, but I think the debate has been exhaustive. Let's vote on the main motion.
Sorry, Chairman Abayan, can you state your motion again?
That when we rise, we recommend this for a vote on second reading. This proposal.
Is there a second for that motion? Second. Motion. All in favor say aye. All of those opposed say nay. Motion carried.
Chairman,
Chairman Abayan,
I move that you rise to plenary.
motion to rise. No, it's not debatable. All in favor say aye. All who oppose say no. Motion carried. Now, Mr. President, we turn over back to you, to the plenary.
Thank you very much, Co-Chairman Asher. I declare a short recess, please. So I hereby request Chairman Asher as co-chairman to report the result of the preceding meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee of the whole has considered committee proposal number 4-06 and 4-07, and I am pleased to report that your committee of the whole recommends that both proposals 4-06 and 4-07 be referred to the convention plenary for second reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chairman Asher. So therefore, we shall consider those proposals, committee proposals as stated.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes.
I think we should vote on its proposal one at a time.
Yes. So I will, we're still in session. So I'd like to request floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move that committee proposal 4-03 be considered for second reading.
Recess.
Recess. Session. Yes. Floor leader. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I repeat my motion. I move that we that committee proposal 4-06 be considered for second reading.
Second.
Point of clarification, Mr. President.
Yes,
The request is for committee proposal 4-06, CCB1, floor.
correct.
That is correct.
So there's a motion to pass that particular committee proposal 404-06 CCD1 on second reading. Okay, was seconded, so any discussion? No discussion?
Question.
Yes. Okay,
Previous.
now we're ready to vote on second reading. So, Chief Clerk,
Thank you, Mr. President. For the state of Chuuk, Delegate Council.
Yes.
For the state of Koshai, Chairman Palsis.
That's a yes.
For the state of Pohnpei, Chairman or Vice President Isonanka Neriarte.
Yes.
For the state of Yap, Chairman Nabayan.
Yes.
Mr. President, all four states voted for the said committee proposal under second reading.
thank you, Chief Clerk. Congratulations. There is a committee proposal. We just passed that on second reading today, and thank you all for your action. Thank you. Moving on, Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that committee proposal 4-07 be considered for second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that committee proposal number 04-07 be passed on second reading. Discussion?
Question?
Move the previous question.
It's been moved and seconded that we stop debate. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Now let's vote on the committee proposal 04-07 for second reading. Chief Clerk.
For the state of Chuuk, Delegate Kanto.
Yes.
For the state of Koshai, Chairman Palsis.
Yes.
For the state of Pohnpei, Chairman or Vice President Isonanka Neriarte.
Yes.
State of Yap, Chairman Nabayan.
Yes.
Mr. President, all four states voted for the said proposal under second reading.
Thank you, Chief Clerk. Again, congratulations. We had passed that particular committee proposal 04-07 for second reading. Thank you all. Okay. Let's all applaud. So moving on, the order of the day, Chief Clerk.
Mr. President, move for short recess, please.
Okay, short recess declared. Chief Clerk, he doesn't do that item, plus subsequent matters.
The next item is item 10, final reading of proposed constitutional amendments. None, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item 11.
Consideration of resolutions, none also, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item 12, introduction and referral of delegate proposals and resolutions.
Mr. President, we do not have a referral sheet at the moment.
Thank you. Item 13, special orders.
None, Mr. President.
Item 14, miscellaneous business. This time I'd like to call on delegates if they have any miscellaneous business to share with us this today. Any miscellaneous business?
Mr. President,
Yes, Delegate Acting Chairman Kando.
thank you, Mr. President. There was a during miscellaneous business, an item raised by, or a concern raised by Delegate Posse regarding some kind of coverage or assistance to members during this convention. And so I took the liberty or initiative of going down and asking the MICARE people if that is possible. And Mr. President, what I was told was that if they are going to extend the benefit to us, then we have to pay, or to the convention members. The convention has to pay coverage for 1 year for a member or each member who is not covered. And that is about $400 plus or minus. So that's only about 400. So, Mr. President, I wish to ask that the leadership look into this to extend assistance to us delegates while we are here and we don't have medicine or money for medicine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Acting Chairman Kando. And again, as former board member on MICARE, I'm glad that you did that. But did you say $400 all or each?
Each. But you know, I believe not all of us need that coverage because some of us are already on MICARE, some are using the True Care Plan and others. So maybe those without any coverage.
I declare services. On item 14, miscellaneous business. Any other miscellaneous business anyone wish to raise aside from those already?
Mr. President,
Yes, Delegate Bossi.
I have to convey my gratitude, thanks to Cantero and Canton for their concerns. I would like to urge each members, delegates, honorable delegates of this convention, that we should be in our genuine minds to consider such contingencies, not because of your poor fellow, Mr. Bossi, but for a genuine notion and thoughts to consider if there will be any member or delegate that will come to such situation, that such contingencies, funding for contingencies should take care of it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Delegate Bossi. That is a very profound and meaningful statement for that matter. Okay, continuing on miscellaneous business before we come down to the end. If none, announcements by the various committee chairperson. Chairman
Mr.
Fritz.
President, you've already used up our time, but let's quickly end so you can leave and you will at least use the remaining afternoon to wrap up our committee work.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here. So any other announcements so that we can move on and have the committee on public finance revenue meet? Chairperson Sikra, announcement?
Yes, just to remind the members of the Committee on General Appropriations that we will have a meeting tomorrow after plenary. So if plenary ends at 11th, we will have it right after. But if it ends at 12:59, we'll have it at 1 p.m. as previously announced. So we will be deliberating pending proposals, and if we have time, we will send out the announcement by email this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Sikra. Yes, Vice Chair Simon.
Yes, thank you. This is on behalf of the style and arrangement. As you guys recall, we just passed during second and final reading today. So I'd like to schedule, it will be coming out in writing, but Tuesday, our assigned slot on Tuesday next week. So I want to start this reminder, make sure we have quorum and everything. I want to make sure that we can add 2 more to the currently finalized for March, hopefully March. And you never know, there's monkeypox out, so we don't want another shutdown and we got nothing. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Vice Chair Simon. Chairman Nabayan, do you have any announcement on the committee?
No, not today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any other Chairman announcements? Okay. If none, Mr. Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that the convention stands in recess until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we stand in recess until tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. All those in favor of the motion say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. We are by recess until tomorrow at 10.